Track title is Learning from Successful Customers to Build a System for Customer Health. Our first speaker, Mr. Sears, is VP of Customer Success at Kumu, and he will be talking to us about building a profile for customer health by understanding your customers. Please give them a big hand.
Thank you. I'm excited to share with you today our experience in building out this health profile over the last 3 years here at Kumu, and what we've learned a little bit along the way in the journey. As she mentioned, I'm Sears. I'm the Vice President of Customer Success at Kumu. When I'm not helping customers build enterprise video content management systems in the enterprise, I live in northern Idaho, where I attempt to raise 2 small children and not screw them up, and go skiing whenever I can, which isn't very often. Qumu is a global organization with offices in Japan, California, Minnesota, London, and India. They really focus on providing that video-on-demand library service to our customers for employee engagement, talent growth, and knowledge sharing and communication and collaboration. In addition to that, we specialize actually in private corporate live streaming of events. So we have customers broadcasting to 450,000 employees in a single stream on a weekly basis, and we have millions of pieces of content in our library throughout our customers. We only have about 220 customers, which I know is low relative to most of you here, but each one of these is extremely high touch and represents tens to hundreds of thousands of users per customer. So there's a lot going on at each one of these. We've been in the leadership space of the Magic Quadrant since the inception of the report, which I think is 2013, if I remember right. And we're pretty excited about where video is going. A lot of new things happening out there, a lot of acquisitions in this space, so it's pretty interesting. I thought this meme was appropriate for when I joined Kumu. As my grandmother would have said, we were one dumb bunny, but I didn't think anybody liked dumb pictures of bunnies, so I went with a cat. We didn't know anything about our customers, really. On some fronts, we didn't even know who they were. We had multiple, I'll get to that. We had a lot of different systems with all this data, and a lot of it wasn't accurate. We were getting information in our sales cycle and then never transferring it past that sales cycle to anybody else, so it was lost there. And often we weren't even asking the right questions in the sales cycle. We were just so happy that somebody wanted to acquire our software that we were moved past that point, right? And so we weren't asking, why buy us? Why buy now? Why buy Kumu? Why not next year? Why not 2 years from now? When you get done with the first thing that you've identified, a lot of times it's a specific use case that they come to us. Our CEO wants to do, I'll give you an example. A CEO wants to do a broadcast for an acquisition announcement, right? And they don't want that to be water cooler talk. They want everybody to know who's getting laid off, who's getting promoted, what the bonus pack, everything, all at the same time. They don't want that to circulate. So they do a live broadcast. So they might come to Kumu to try and get that implemented before this acquisition happens. It's a very tight timeline, and they want to get focused. Once that happens, what do they do on day 2? They have no plan, 0. And when we started to ask our customers that question, we got a lot of blank stares, right? Which was actually a very telling thing for us, a real warning sign for us. We also had a lot of confusion. We had multiple acquisitions and divestitures going on at the same time, again, all with their own sources of information. Everyone swore they were true. A lot of times they weren't. Everything from who the customer is, who our contacts are, to what they bought, what they purchased, how much did they actually pay, how much should they renew for tomorrow. It was actually very concerning. But because of those things, and because we have multiple products in our portfolio with a number of packaging items around them, it can get very complicated for our sales field to understand during those changes, what are they supposed to pitch now, right? 2 of these products look the same, smell the same, act the same. We're actually competing with ourselves in the same deal. That doesn't work so well in the sales cycle. So lots of confusion there. So what did we do? We made a couple conscious decisions to start with. We said that we wanted to use Totango to capture all of our product usage data. Our application was built and lended itself very easily to integrating with the Totango API so that we could actually capture absolutely everything. We didn't know it was important, so we just thought we'll just capture everything and then we'll figure out what's important. And we found some interesting things there as well. Some features that we don't view in our space as important were being used a lot. And we know that that's not because they're valuable features. So it led us down the path of why are we using those in our customers. For example, it's updating a video. was one thing that was being used more often than creating a new piece of content. Historically, in the plus decade I have in this space, that isn't a common feature. People post a video and forget it. So why are they going back? Well, probably because there's something wrong with our tool. It's not easy enough to use the first time around, so they have to come back and reuse it later. So those are some interesting factoids we learned. The other thing is we made the conscious decision that we weren't going to take all of our ancillary data sources and try and fit them into Totango. If they had a good home, we were going to let them stay where they were. We'll pull it together offline and then figure out what makes sense and then make a plan for going forward as to what we really need to pull from each of these sources and where we really need to put it. And that involved analysis across our groups and actually involved a reorganization across our groups, as I've heard other people mention here as well. We now define customer success as everything after the sale. So our support teams, our customer success management teams, our consulting teams, our cloud team, everything after the sale is in customer success. And analysis across those groups. And what we discovered is that we were operating almost entirely off of opinion. We had almost zero facts that we were using. So we were operating off of opinions that typically came from the sales cycle or even opinions that came from the customer. And what that meant is that we were spending time with customers not commensurate with where they were in line with our value proposition, where we were going. So we also found that we had customers that were just outside that bubble that weren't getting any attention and had our greatest opportunity for growth. I think the important thing here is you're going to have subjective measurements, and they should be welcomed, but you need to look at it as what can we do to then drive to facts that can support those measurements and make us cause some validity around them. We also discovered that there was 4 pain points that we could improve upon for our customers. The first, as I mentioned, we have a wide array of products and packaging, and we simply weren't offering the customer the right solution to solve their problem, even though we had it in our tool set. And that wasn't being identified until typically a customer was leaving. So that's a very difficult thing for your CEO to hear. Also, our onboarding, we were letting our customers drive the schedule for onboarding and what was going to get them to first value. And a lot of our customers want to think in terms of utopia. So they dream out for success is defined as my 400,000 employees uploading a video to the platform every week and each video getting, I don't know, 10,000 views or something. That's maybe further down the road. We need to start with, can we get a video into the platform and get some usage behind it and get some adoption model. So we were letting the customers drive that schedule, and we're kind of switching that around a bit. In our expectations, we were agreeing to expectations in the sales cycle that we had no intention of ever meeting. So we were guaranteeing, I heard this morning, right? So what was it? Disappointment equals expectations minus reality. It couldn't be more true for us. We were never going to meet those, so they were always going to be disappointed. And we started to engage in those conversations and be open with them and just say, that isn't really our core business. We're not going to go down that path, but here's how you can. Here's our API, here's partners you can deal with, whatever, to get down those things. And then the last thing really, as I mentioned, was the day 2. So, you've built your live stream for your acquisition. What are you going to do tomorrow? Go to Disney World? So it's, what are you going to do that next day? How are you going to build this system inside your organization? Like many of us out there, we are just a tool, and a tool does nothing if somebody doesn't take that tool and use it, grow it, and evangelize it in their organization. So what makes a successful customer for Kumu? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the left. I think probably everyone in here does all these things on the left already. But really quickly, measuring growth of product usage, license, all of those types of things, how satisfied our customers are, time to first value, product feedback, community involvement. Raise your hand if you're doing these. 2 people. Okay, perfect. But the right-hand side for us anyway was not as obvious. Maybe this is true for all of you, but we made some correlations here. So one of the correlations is, again, our platform, like some others I've heard, it's not a completely self-service platform. You can get started, but really to get to true value, you need help. And so we were able to, and I'll share within it a bit, but we were able to draw some direct correlations between a percentage of consulting spend versus success. Also, we decided to implement a few different scoring mechanisms that we would do in the process. We would look at rating the customer at the end of onboarding. This is like Uber. Uber rates, you rate the Uber driver, the driver rates you as a passenger. So here we're rating the customer as a passenger. How much did they treat us as a partner versus a vendor in the onboarding process? Do they want to grow with us, or do they just want to kind of beat us up and say we can't deliver these things? Is this a political agenda, or do they actually want to use video inside their organization? What are they trying to do? This one I refer to as affectionately as the swagger score. And what I mean by that is rating your customer for their political capital inside their organization. It's very subjective, but it's a process we've started doing because title doesn't mean everything in these organizations. And it's how effective are they able to make changes when it's necessary. That could be anything from something technical, like implementing a firewall change if you had to get that done, to purchasing new things during the onboarding cycle that were identified, to whatever. And how much pull do they have to actually push those things through. We also talk to our customers about what success means to them, and this again is back to that day two. I guess I'm hammering on that one quite a bit, but for us it was very key. So getting your customer to admit what success looks like for them and how they're going to measure it, and we actually tell our customers, how are you going to tell your boss next year that you should renew? So what's the story that you're going to paint for them, and how do we help you paint that story? And obviously we provide some guidance because we have experience here. And then onboarding feedback from the customer. So trying to get into a continuous improvement cycle of how do we make this better, and getting your customers to be candid with you up front. So a sample success story. I'll have to race through this quick, but this is a healthcare company. They were on our top 10 dissatisfied customers list. They had one use case, but it was utopia. In 18 months, we never got past the test user group. We never got a real piece of content. And they had a negative NPS score, and finally our sponsor just abandoned us and quit, which turned out to be the best thing in the world. Because when he did, we were then finally able to talk to his customers, our customer's customer, right? So we didn't have any relationship, and we were gated there. We weren't allowed to talk to those people. And once he abandoned it, opened the doors to us to start and go back and say, what are you trying to do? Can we identify something small that we can build upon? So here are the results on the right-hand side. This is a month worth of usage. So we went from no content to a month worth of usage, almost 700 presentations, 40,000 views, 100% satisfaction score. It's a pretty happy customer, and they're using the platform. And one of the things up there we identified in that review was external presentations. Said, hey, you're not doing this. Why not? We didn't know you could. Perfect. So that's something we need to fix in onboarding, right? We didn't tell them all the capabilities that they had access to. A couple other quick things. If you get this, you love Christopher Guest movies, or you've been around as long as I have. But I've heard this a ton, mainly in the sales cycle, but we found that our customers who complain the most, the loudest, most support tickets, yell, whatever, are the happiest in general. So we embrace the volume. So we've actually now started promoting to our customers, go ahead and yell at us as much as you want. We want to hear it more. And we're actually going to be, this year, we're going to be rolling out some competitions with our customers to do that. So we want them to tell us that we suck, because we think we can fix it. We also, this is back to the correlation on consulting services, we identified that any customer that spends, I literally had one customer tell me, I waited 6 months to get a response from you, and I didn't get one, and I don't think that's fast. So we're better than that now. But so we were able to draw the conclusion that customers that spend 12% or less of their total spend in our consulting services have a negative NPS score, have less than an 85% satisfaction rating, have a short-term life with us, about 3 years. Our average is about 7 or 8. And just generally, they're just not happy. They don't participate in our customer community. They don't provide product feedback. They're destined for failure. But customers that spend 20% or more have a 20% roughly NPS score or better, 98% satisfaction rate, and generally participate in all those things, speak at our events, provide direct feedback to our product group, et cetera. So that was a correlation we didn't expect. And we're actually using this now in the sales cycle up front to say, do you want to be this guy or this guy? We think you want to be this one. So taking it back to your organizations, I would focus on finding those opinions, but try and validate those opinions with facts. Don't just let them exist and assume they're accurate. learn from your trends, as I mentioned there, the one on PS, there's other ones as well, and use those to educate your customers as to what is gonna make them a successful customer relative to the rest of yours, right? The rest of our really good customers do these things. You probably should too if you wanna be a really good and happy customer. Seek those unlikely correlations. You know, the consulting one for us was not obvious coming into this, and it sort of bubbled to the top as an aha moment. Like, why didn't we think of that earlier? It seems pretty obvious in retrospect, but it wasn't going into it. And I think that's another thing too, is that the data can get confusing. You start to get to data points flying over all over the place, and you get overwhelmed looking at all this data, and not all of the data is created equally. So you start to have to weigh what matters for right now, and it may be different 6 months from now. You may go after a different segment, which dictates what those scores mean to you then. You may be more focused on product enhancements as a company. Whatever your focus is at that time, it may change that a little bit. Agree with your customers up front in the sales cycle about success, and then target your ideal customer. And what I mean by that is, in the sales cycle, go through these checkpoints and identify which one of these customers do you think will be the most successful, and encourage your sales teams to focus all their energy there, as opposed to treating all of their sales leads as equally, just based on, you know, how likely they are to get the sale. The last bit I'd leave with you is, we now lead with customer success as an advantage in our sales cycle with the customer. And the way we frame that up is to set the expectation that we want our customers to be our partners, and we want our customers to view us as their partner. And so as we're gonna provide all this for them, and we're gonna help them along the journey, but we also expect them to participate and be active. And that, I think that's changed a lot for us in helping to frame that up. And that's it. Thanks.